Product licensing is basically when you rent your product concept to a company and collect passive income or royalties, completely location independent. First, you have a product idea or many product ideas, and you want to bring them to market on store shelves for the world to enjoy. But maybe you don't have a lot of money or time or energy. Maybe you want to be a little bit risk averse. And so you can license or rent your idea to a large company, for example, like Hasbro, and then they manufacture it and you make a small royalty on units sold. You say it's too good to be true because it really does sound like that until you get your feet wet and really understand how the industry works, how incredible and true it actually is.
That is today's guest, Courtney Lasowich, who went from having zero experience in product development to licensing 6 different products to companies after getting rejected 51 times in a row. Yes, she has some things to share about that, how we can handle rejection. She's also a product licensing coach. And in this episode, you're going to discover the 10-step system she uses to turn ideas into passive income streams, which includes some golden nuggets like why 80% of success has nothing to do with how good your idea is, the simple under $100 filing that gives you legal protection without spending tens of thousands of dollars on patents, and loads more. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with travel? Well, it's been a while since I've actually covered one specific type of location-independent business model. And I thought this one was perfect because, like myself, I'm sure a lot of people listening, perhaps you included, have at some point had an idea for a product. And if you've ever had a product idea and you just wished, oh, can't somebody else do this and I can just make money off of it? Well, that's exactly what product licensing is. Somebody else will make it and they pay you the royalties, as you heard. And this episode is going to show you exactly how that business model works in the real world and give you a tool in your tool belt, perhaps to use one day, perhaps to use right now if you're sitting in an idea. Let's get into it, shall we? Buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. You know, I have been on my own product development and manufacturing journey, which I'm about to share very soon with you here on the podcast. I'm super excited about it. If you want to hear more, I'm also going to share everything on the Zero to Travel newsletter, because instead of starting another newsletter, I thought, why don't I just share with my fellow friends and community here, you, the listener. So sign up over there, ZeroToTravel.com/newsletter. You get a behind-the-scenes take on what's going on. I share some personal pictures, updates, travel news that can help you, all that good stuff. It's free, once again, to sign up, ZeroToTravel.com/newsletter. So join up there if you haven't done so yet. I'm so excited to dive into this one. On the back end, I'm going to leave you with a modern quote to wrap this up on inventing that wasn't said or invented by one person, but is actually based on something said by one of the ancient Greek philosophers. Kind of an interesting fact I found out doing research for this episode. Check out Courtney's work, by the way, over at serialinventing.com and starflyerideas.com. We'll link up to that in the show notes. She also has a podcast called the Serial Inventing Podcast, which you can listen to if you want to dive deeper on this topic. But I thought it would be a really fun way to give you an intro, 101 and then some on product licensing, how it works, and give you plenty of information to decide if it's something you may want to pursue now or in the near future to help fund your travels. Thanks for listening. Enjoy my conversation with Courtney, and I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers.
The district line is partially closed between Ealing Broadway and Turnham Green. There is a good service operating on all other London Underground lines.
Courtney Lasowich, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for being here in the middle of the night, as you are. It's been a while since I've done sort of like a full-blown episode on a specific business model. And, we started emailing a while back, and I know you reached out and said, hey, I do this product licensing thing. And I said, oh, that always sounds like a pretty amazing and too good to be true at the same time kind of thing. And yeah, so I just like, well, let's just do an episode on it, because as we travel around and as we go through life, I think that, the way we do it changes, I guess. The lifestyle we might want to have, or a business we might think, oh, I would never do like a location independent business. And then like 3 years later, you're like, oh, I think I have some ideas, and you just never know. So, going into this episode, I just wanted to preface that, because if people are like, product licensing, it's not my thing. Well, I don't know. Stick around. It might not be your thing now. Maybe it will be in the future. Who knows? So is that fair to say, Courtney?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. You never know what idea you might come up with when you're traveling. And if it's not, right now, then you never know. In a couple years, you might have a brilliant idea that you just can't get out of your brain and you want to do something with.
Yeah. Well, I said too good to be true, because it's like, it's the dream, right? I just sit back and make the ideas, and then somebody else does them all. And I guess you're going to give us the reality of this whole situation. I don't want to call it a situation, but where do we begin here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good place to start is kind of defining and talking a little bit about what the heck product licensing is, so the audience is aware of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's great. Normally, I kind of like take the lead on these things, but you actually coach people on this topic. So you've heard all the difficult questions, you've heard all of the objections, you've heard all of it from all sides. So yeah, give us the rundown, give us the sort of the foundational definition, and yeah, what are we talking about today? What's kind of the goal of this episode for you?
Yeah, so honestly, like if I could pick anything, I would say that really trying to shed light and explain what product licensing is, since it's such a small niche area in business, it's very difficult to for people to be aware of what it is when you're talking about it. And in general, for people to be aware of what it is when you're talking about it as a business practice, because when you're looking to start a business, you have an idea and you don't know what to do with it. A lot of people think, well, the first thing to do must be to patent it. Like, you have an idea, like you must patent it, you got to protect it. And then what do? Maybe you do a prototype, maybe you start an entire business out of it. Then you got to think of manufacturing. And that's what we call as venturing. Starting a business is venturing. That's option A. Option B is product licensing. Now, how product licensing works is basically when you rent your product concept to a company and collect passive income or royalties, completely location independent. So first, you have a product idea or many, many product ideas, and you want to bring them to market on store shelves for the world to enjoy. But maybe you don't have a lot of money or time or energy. Maybe you want to be a little bit risk averse. And so you can license or rent your idea to a large company, for example, like Hasbro. And then they manufacture it and you make a small royalty on units sold. You say it's too good to be true, because it really does sound like that until you get your feet wet and really understand how the industry works, how incredible and true it actually is.
Okay. Well, I want to paint the realistic picture here. Of course, I know you're going to do that. It's like anything. On the outside, you can think like, well, that only certain people are able to do that. But if you have the knowledge and the willingness, I feel like you can get in and give anything. Anybody can give anything a go, because if those people are doing it, you can too. I don't want to sound like rah, Mr. Motivational speaker guy, but it is true, right? Like if people are doing it, that means they went on the journey and they did it themselves. So it is possible. That being said, I don't think you're saying it's easy.
No. It takes a lot of soft skills, I would say. more important than the idea itself. So you have to accept a lot of rejection, which I would say just that in and of itself, dealing with rejection of getting no after no from company after company, that itself scares away so many people after the first 5 no's, 10 no's, 15 no's. You think it's not for you. You think it's you. You think it's your product, and you leave the industry because of that, along with so many other soft skills that you need. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that they must just have an idea and a good idea to work with the industry, and then that's it. But unfortunately, the idea itself, I would say, is probably 20% of the magical ratio, and 80% is really those soft skills that you need to be successful.
Well, then what are some of the other soft skills? Like who would have a chance, like listening, like what types of skills? And prefacing this with like skills can be developed, of course, right? If you hear this and you don't have them now, it doesn't mean you'll never have them.
Yeah, it's interesting because this industry is not necessarily unique to a large amount of other industries. You just need more depth in these soft skills, more acquired. And they're very basic things like discipline, having a lot of discipline, having a lot of like sheer passion, and again, discipline irrelevant of motivation because it's fleeting. You're going to have days where you're not going to want to do this. So discipline is really important. Consistency, very important. Some other things, it kind of depends when we're talking about skills. Obviously, we're talking a little bit about soft skills, and then we've got hard skills. And to be able to successfully do this again and again and again on many ideas, which I would call a serial inventor, if that is you, then there are some important hard skills that you would need to acquire, such as being good at graphic design helps because you don't have to farm that out to an external designer and pay them. Same thing with writing your own provisional patent applications. That can also really help. You don't necessarily have to file a PPA, provisional patent application, but it does help make you look more professional to companies.
Is that like a patent hold where you kind of like you apply and you're like, hey, this is in the works?
Yes, exactly. So there's a bunch of different patents. But yeah, a PPA, a provisional patent application, holds the date, call it a priority date, for 12 months. And you have that for 12 months, as long as you don't publicly disclose it, to be able to say that you are technically patent pending for that time.
All right. So before we dive into like the weeds here, give us a real world example of how like one of or two of your projects that you've been able to license. And if you're able to and willing, would love to hear what that looks like financially as well, in terms of like the costs of getting it, maybe the sweat equity portion, and then what the result was. Like give us kind of if we could use you as a case study so people can get a better understanding of what this looks like in real life. Because I think we understand the principles of like, oh yeah, we can lend our idea and then we're going to get paid on it. But it's always nice to hear a real world example.
Yeah, definitely. So I started working on learning how to product license through a program called inventRight. And it was a year-long coaching program where I learned the 10 steps to product licensing. And then through that, that was a year program. It took me 2 years total to get my very first licensing deal. And that was
including the time that you took the program? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So from 2016 to 2018 was when I got my very first licensing deal. I was pitching for about, I would say, a year and maybe 8 months. So that's kind of the timeline that you kind of want to be aware of if you're someone in the audience wondering like how long it takes. Like, yes, you got to learn it, but the amount of time pitching is really what's going to matter. And unfortunately, that's kind of like saying like, how quickly do you want to get a licensing deal? Well, how much time do you have? If you're going to work 10 hours a week pitching, then you're going to hopefully get that deal much quicker. But through that, I landed a deal with a company called Dormco. And it's a very interesting story because it was about the 50, I think it was the 52nd company that I reached out to. So mind you, I got 51 no's over a year plus.
Yeah.
Pitching my product and then saying,
what was
thank
your
you
product?
so much. Yeah. So I had a main product called the keyboard desk. And what it is, it's basically a piece of wood that I licensed. It goes over your keyboard. So, for example, if you are taking a course online, whether it's your laptop or it's your actual physical keyboard with your personal computer, you put it over your keyboard, and then you can put things on top of it, like your notebook. So it's basically doubling your workspace, creating that vertical space on top of your keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my
for
main
dorm room
idea.
usage.
Actually, no. I did not have any interest in the dorm space, to be honest. It was originally just for my own desk, because originally I had a very small desk and I wanted to just create more space on it, and I had the keyboard there. So I just found a way to put a piece of wood on top of it with sides, and then I could put all of my notebooks, or if I was eating in front of my computer, or if I was working on a project, I wouldn't mess with the keys, and I created the space for it.
Okay. All right. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I needed to know what the product was.
Of course. Yes. That
was
my very first product, the keyboard desk.
Okay. So 50-second company is the lucky charm.
Yeah.
50-second time is a charm.
Yes, it was 52, and I reached out to Dormco. What happened was, originally I was reaching out to organization companies. I was also reaching out to some novelty companies that had like larger products that they sold. I was reaching out to home decor companies, furniture companies. I went through a large variety of categories. And unfortunately, through them all, I was getting obviously no after no. We call it a nose game. So I was definitely collecting the no's. We believe that no means N-O, next opportunity.
Okay.
So I accepted
like
the rejection.
Yeah.
And I kept going.
We can use that for anything here. We'll steal that.
Oh, yeah. You should.
Or I'm sorry, we'll license it from you.
There you go.
All right. So you persisted.
I persisted, and then on the 52nd, I thought I might as well try a new category. I wasn't having much luck with the others. And so through that, I thought of the school kind of dorm area, never stepped foot in it. In fact, I went to a community college. I've never stepped actual foot into a dorm room before. So I had to learn a little bit about that industry. I found a trade show list. I found Dormco, a company. I pitched to them, and they said, really cool product, but this is bad timing. If you don't have a company that you're going to publish it with in 6 months, then please feel free to reach out to us and we will consider it at that time. Which I originally thought was kind of a no. I was a little bit new to the game, and I thought, okay, 6 months. Like, I'm totally going to get a deal before 6 months. Like, I'm not going to reach out to them. And then 6 months went by. And I collected 81 total no's until I forgot about that company. And I reached out 7 months later, and they said, yeah, this is great timing. We still love the product. And do you have more products that would fit our brand? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And I got off that phone and I'm like, I don't know anything about the dorm space. What am I going to do here?
Then you started brainstorming again. Yes,
I did. As the inventor that I am, which is we all call ourselves inventors in our industry. I then came up with, I think it was like 20 or 21, 22 product ideas. I pitched them all to Jeff, and he liked 3 others. And in my very first deal, I got 4 products licensed in the licensing contract.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack here. There are also, I think, some bigger lessons, like even if you're not pursuing product development here. It's like another great example of if you're going on like a business journey or a travel journey or any journey, you really can't see what's around the corner until you get there. And you don't really know how you're going to have to pivot. Like you pivoted to this other category, but you don't really know what that looks like until you start. It's just another reminder to me that it is so important to try to just get started and not get hung up on something being perfect. Because if you don't get started, you never end up at the end place that you don't know you're going to end up. You know what I mean? That could be a good call to action for people as they're listening, whether you're pursuing this at the end of the podcast or not, is just whatever the thing is, whether it's I did this the other day. I have it right here, actually. I bought this nice notebook because I wanted to write letters to my kids. And I'm just like, let me just buy this notebook and just start. Like, I don't know why I keep thinking about this. Now, granted, I've only written like a couple letters so far, but it's still here sitting on my desk. And these letters don't have to be perfect. I just like, I'm just using that as an example because it doesn't have to be business oriented. Like, just get started. And that, to me, starts giving you momentum and, helps you figure out the pivots that you don't know sooner than later. Unlike the 81st no. I know you forgot about this company and everything. I mean, at what point does an inventor say, this just isn't a good idea? Like, knowing it's not a good idea and moving on and pitching other ideas versus like to keep going with it. Yeah,
there are parameters. I would say the biggest one is feedback from companies. Because unfortunately, us as inventors are obviously very biased in our own product. And,
sure, you're like, this is a great idea. Why aren't people buying it?
Exactly. Like, I came up with it, so it must be incredible because, I brought it to fruition and I asked my family and they love it. And I asked my friends and they love it. So, and unfortunately, it's obviously very easy to follow in that. And as you'll see as we continue on, there's a lot of incredible stories and soft skills that are built that can translate to so many different industries. And quickly, back to your point about like, just start things. We say all the time, it's the start that stops most people. And if you just think about that, of how your brain tries to get you to not start something, and you finally just say, you know what, I'm just gonna try it. I'm just going to start it. If you start it, it's so much easier to continue something that you start than to actually take the leap and just start something. Like, start it bad. If you want to do something that's you're wanting to do well, like do really good, then it's worth starting poorly. But our brain is kind of struggling with that. But it's very important to make sure that we truly think about what matters to us and to just put that one step forward, whether it's product licensing or becoming, location independent. It can be translated in so many different areas.
Yeah. I call that playing business versus doing business, right? Playing business is the making the logo and the website. Yeah, those things can be a part of it, certainly. I mean, I just went through this process with a new project I'm working on, and the brand identity and how you want to project yourself is important. But what's more important is actually getting sales. In your case, that means selling a company to license your product. At some point, you're selling a product or service. And when you get to the hard part or the scary part, or let's say you have to fork over some money to get inventory if you're creating physical product or whatever it is, and then the brain starts kicking in and you're like, this is stupid, I don't know, is anybody gonna get, that's usually when you're actually doing business. When you start like you're getting on the sales call and you're like, I don't have any confidence for this, I know what I'm doing, and you just keep putting it off. Those things that you put off tend to be the things that are actually the things that are going to move the needle in a business, but also the scariest to do. And I'm just mentioning all this because people know it, but I think it's worth a reminder because we can a lot of times just be battling in our own head. And when you listen to a conversation like this and it's completely normal to get rejected and to doubt yourself and all these things, then you're just like, okay, like what I'm going through is what everybody that tries to start something goes through. And cool. That, to me, that's reassuring.
100%. And again, like that's the biggest reason why people leave the industry, because they're in their head, because they don't have that community, because they lack the discipline, the consistency, because they're tired of the rejections, not because of their product or because of the industry or because of something tangible, but actually because they are stuck in their head. And what's great about obviously having a coach or an accountability partner or just someone to rely on during this process, it allows you to get out of your head and really, instead of, back to your question, instead of thinking about, my product sucks, I've got 20 no's, like it must be time to throw put the idea on the shelf or throw it in the trash and work on a new idea. But to really remember that it's about, what are companies saying? Are they saying the product sucks? Do they say that it is too high of manufacturing costs? Is it, too difficult to build because of the way that it's being manufactured? Is it because it's not fitting their brand identity as well? there's a lot of really good notes that you can learn about your product if you put your listening ears on and take some time and develop a relationship with that company, less transactional, more relationship building, and then you're officially in the game where you can make critical and rational decisions about your idea.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, you're gathering as part of the sort of let's call it the rejection process, because unless you're very lucky, it's going to be a next opportunity, no situation. Then it's about information gathering and kind of stoically listening with an open ear and analyzing that feedback and just trying to understand, is this like, does this have a shot? Like, are people like seeing the value in this, and should I keep going? Yeah, that's a process that you can't really teach in many ways. You just kind of have to make the calls. Should I keep pitching this thing or making new one? But that's super helpful to kind of hear your experience with that. Okay, so financially, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I will give you what it looks like for me, and then I'll give you what's common because they're different, unfortunately.
I was going to say fortunately or unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I guess it depends on how you look at it, what shoes you're in.
Yeah.
For me, so of course I got those 4 products licensed, and then 2 years later I did another deal with Dormco, and then got 2 more products licensed. So 6 products on store shelves with the one company, Dormco. There's a couple unfortunate aspects of it, and these are great learning tools for everyone else and all of my students that I coach, because I get this question asked to me all of the time. And usually what people are wondering is, how much money can I make if I pour all of my time into this? What is that return on investment? And I'm going to start with myself, which is what is really important is to work with a company that has a marketing plan for your product or all new products that they are launching, as well as making sure that they have large distribution. So, for example, Dormco has distribution in just like Amazon, Wayfair, Walmart online, their website, all e-commerce, nothing brick and mortar, no big box like Target, and no specialty store. That already, because of that, is going to niche the amount of money that you can make. And these are questions that you want to ask up front as well. And there's many different terms that go into a contract, such as exclusivity. If you have exclusivity, only they can do something with the product idea. But if it's a non-exclusive deal, then they can continue to push the product forward and have it in, for example, just e-commerce. And then you can have another company also do a non-exclusive deal, and they could have another market that your current company doesn't have, such as brick and mortar, or it could be territory based, like US and Canada and Australia.
I see. Okay. Yeah, there's different types of deals, of course. So
exactly, yeah. And so through that, there's a couple of parameters. Like again, they're e-commerce only. They have a lot of SKUs of products, and that is how Dormco is successful with their particular business model. Is they have so many SKUs of products, like hundreds and hundreds of products, that they make a little bit of money on so many different products, which is why they're successful. Which also means that they can test a lot of different products and see what's really successful and what isn't. And that also means most products usually sell a much lower order quantity because of that business model. So all of that combined, you can get a monthly royalty or you can get a quarterly royalty. I've had royalty checks as low as 5 cents. I have a month-to-month royalty check. The biggest royalty that I've ever gotten 1 month, I think, was just shy of $400, which is pretty low overall. The one thing that I also mentioned is that Dormco is seasonal. It's dorm products, and people buy dorm products at 2 particular times during the year, and one fall is much more intense than the one in spring. So that's kind of the situation that I have with my products. However, when it comes down to the average and the different industries, each industry is different. And again, it depends on all of those different parameters. But I like to answer this question in a similar manner to some similar industries, which is like the music industry or book publishing, where you can make $0 on a book that you put out. You could also be an absolute millionaire, and there are inventors who are product licensing who are millionaires off of their royalties. But the majority amount of musicians and, book creators and inventors are obviously in that middle range. And if I had to put a guess on it, a good amount of an average, I would probably say an inventor on average with a royalty, I would say per quarter, because quarter is a little bit more popular with companies. I would say between $1,000 per royalty check and maybe $30,000, which is a massive range, unfortunately.
No, I understood though. I mean, the way you just explained your own story, I think people get you've painted the picture of the nuances that are involved with all of it, the deal, the company you're working with, the product itself, what their business model is, all of these sort of things that tie in. So I understand that would be a big range. And of course it's always appealing, the idea of creating something and you do it once and then you can continue to get paid on that once you sell it, which, depending on how long your deal is and all of that stuff. But if you have non-exclusivity and you can license it to different companies and different markets, it seems like the sky's the limit if you land on something pretty cool. And I guess also for you, you're coaching, you've got your experience licensing yourself. You're also seeing the big picture in terms of helping other people do it. So I do want to ask you what the common other questions are that we should get answered today. Yeah, the financial piece, like for you, I would imagine you're looking at the big picture, right? Like you have these products, but you're working on other products and pitching, I'm guessing,
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So it might sound discouraging to get a 5-cent, royalty check. But the fact is you have licensed some things. And if you're kind of in it to win it, you never know what's around the corner. That's one of the things that's exciting, I guess, about
Definitely.
it.
And people have one-hit wonders as well, which is incredible.
I'll take a one-hit wonder, man.
Can't we all?
Yeah. All right. Well, if anybody out there wants to license an electric flying car, that's my idea. You're going to have to pay me. No. On that note, there are some legal questions, of course, like when is an idea yours versus just an idea that already exists? I'm sure these are the common questions. I want to hit on all the common questions that you get. Is that one that you hear?
Yes, but we actually hear it from a different slant, which is we have a lot of students, clients who come into our program who either are very scared, obviously, to talk about their product idea for it potentially to be stolen. And we have people who have spent $50,000 on a patent that is now officially granted. And they come in and they think that you have to have a granted patent to do anything with your product idea, because what is an idea at all without protection? And it's valid. Unfortunately, the way that we think, the way our education is, the way we're indoctrinated by different viewpoints of how business works, unfortunately, it doesn't pan out as well with product licensing. It can be a plus to have a granted patent if the claims are actually relevant to what the company wants to protect, getting a little bit nitty gritty there. It's very easy to have a granted patent without having any benefit or purpose of it. It's not like you have a patent and therefore like you've got 20 cameras on your house and you're good to go and no one will ever be able to get in. It's like, well, what if you're next to a volcano? Like, okay, there's a problem there. It doesn't matter how many cameras you have. And so because of that, unfortunately, we have a lot of preconceived notions and myths that come up right off the bat about intellectual property, because a lot of people believe that what you're licensing is your patent. You are patent licensing, which is a thing as well. But when it comes to product licensing, this is a product concept. This is an idea from your head that you are professionally developing through a process with inventRight. It's a 10-step process. Step 7 of our process is actually protecting your concept. And we do recommend having a provisional patent application. We do have a program that helps you learn how to write it, and you can file it, which as of 2025, it is $65. Last year it was $60.
Okay, that's a lot more affordable than 50,000.
Yes, it is. And that's a non-provisional patent, which most of the time you do not need at all in any way, shape, or form. And people believe that they can't move forward with their idea because they don't have the money to get a patent. However, the reality is when you are pitching a product, there is a very large amount of companies that are utilizing their own brand's recognition as a intellectual property business strategy. So because they're well known in the industry, like Hasbro or Mattel or any well-known brand or manufacturer, where you can go to their website and it says that they do make their own products and you can buy them somewhere, whether it's their website or, anywhere physical, then you can reach out to them. And if they're large enough, depending on what their strategy is, they may ask you if you have protection, but they also may not necessarily. Because their brand is so big, they're using that as a form of protection. And even then, so if they do want a patent, a granted patent, often if they have serious interest in the product, they will go ahead and pay for the patent, and then it will be in your name because you are officially the inventor and they cannot put their name on it.
Yeah, if it's successful, then that's protecting them too, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it worth running through? I know there's a lot. You did a year-long coaching program with these 10 steps, but is it worth through running through the 10 steps just so people get an overarching? Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. So steps 1 through 3 is all about market research. So, unfortunately, these 3 steps are the most important by far steps you can ever do, the most important steps and the least correctly done steps. And I got it. I took a look and I searched on Google and my product's not out there, so we can move forward. And then 2 years later, they find a product out there that's been out there for 5 years and they wasted all of this time and money and energy because they didn't do a thorough Google search, a thorough image search, a shopping search. They did a Google patent search for what's called prior art. It's not that difficult overall to do it, but unfortunately, because inventors are quite in love with their product idea, that they end up usually off the bat not putting in the proper keywords because they are thinking that it's not out there. So sure, I'll do a quick search on Google, dog toy that squeaks. Oh, there's nothing there. Well, what's your point of difference in your product? Oh, it's a square dog toy that squeaks. It's the square part that's unique. Did you use the word square in your Google search? I just found it in 5 seconds. But what did you search? And they, of course, didn't search square because, again, there's a couple situations of why they're not finding it. But if you're critically thinking and you're rational about it and you separate yourself from the product idea and think about all the different ways you can search in different words what your product idea is, including typing in the problem it's solving and typing in the solution, and doing a Google patent search, you'll already be really good to go with knocking out all the first 3 steps of market research.
Okay, that's great advice also for just general market research, whether you're doing product licensing or another business. And I especially like the type in the problem and the solution thing and see what you come across. And all the other things, being intentional with the keywords, making sure you're covering everything. There's always going to be the fear that you miss something. And that just, I don't know if that ever goes away, but
it doesn't. I know firsthand it does not.
Yeah. But if the product exists in some way, does that mean you just move on to the next product idea or? Yeah.
Yeah, usually not, because what is better to create more success for more industries and more money is improvements on an existing concept. Most inventors are far more successful with capitalizing than creating, meaning spatulas, for an example, are already out there. Everyone knows what a spatula is. You are not developing the first ever spatula, but you are developing a unique type of spatula that has 20 holes on it, so it's aerodynamic, so you can flip flapjacks much quicker. You're capitalizing on an existing concept. You are improving on something that already exists. And so often when you find products out there, usually most often people come up with improvements in general of the idea. They're not coming up with a spatula, they're coming up with an improvement on something. And usually things that are out there are not exactly like yours, and you will need to take some time and look at the point of difference, the pod. What is your point of difference between all of the things that you found out there and your product? And you will decide, how close is it? And is it the same market, the same audience that you're pitching to? And if it is, then you'll need to decide, can you come up with better points of differences that would be a different audience, or would be obviously better that if a consumer looked side by side, they'd pick yours over the other? If not, then yeah, you might need to put it on the shelf and think of a different idea.
Okay. Yeah. So the market research can feed into the invention portion, like the creative part, I guess, if you're challenging yourself to fit into a different market or to differentiate in some way. It's just going to get your brain thinking in a different way. I guess that's a natural byproduct of the market research process. I always think of the Dyson hand dryer thing, that you put your hands in. And I think they were the first ones to do it. I think they make their own products, right? Or maybe they license.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because, you had air dryers in bathrooms all over the place with just water going on the floor and drying down. And I think they were the first ones, or it feels like, to just like, why don't we just have them put hands in something that sucks all the water? And it's just, duh, it seems like but these kind of things are all around, right? You think like, oh, you can't improve on this, or just what we have is what we have. Yet people find ways to improve on things that have been around forever, like the spatula you mentioned. I don't know if that spatula idea is going to sell, but we can. Hey, feel free to steal it. The flapjack spatula. All right, all right. So we did that. Covers 1 through 3. What about 4 through 10?
Yes. Yeah. So step 4 is about the prototype. Now, there's 2 main types of prototypes that you can create. You can create a physical prototype, like we call it a works like or a looks like prototype, or both of them together is the best. Not necessarily always possible if there's electronics involved. A lot of the prototypes are like going to Target and the dollar store and cobbling things together and seeing if your thing can function the way that you want it to.
Yeah, the Frankenstein.
Yes, yeah. Yes, a Frankenstein. Yeah. Or you can do also what is called a virtual Frankenstein, which is basically Photoshop. You can just grab images together. I have some training videos on that as well for inventors who want to learn how to not go through all of Photoshop and learn that. I use Google Slides.
Well, now, have you used AI for this kind of stuff? Can you use...
You absolutely can. It's getting better and better. Unfortunately, you have to be pretty impressively good at your prompt. And so that then creates a whole nother skill that you need to learn and learn more about breaking down barriers instead of, oh, I need a domain because, I have an idea, and, oh, I need this incredible email signature because I like to play business, not do business, like you said. So it can help. And ChatGPT, any of those like AI text generative ones can be really helpful for you coming up with variations and talking your product idea through. But the images, if you're good at prompting, can help that.
Okay. So that's encouraging in the sense that, you mentioned people going to the dollar store and putting stuff together and I have a prototype here that's like made out of cardboard for something I'm working on. These kind of things, it's just, it has to start somewhere. So I think that is encouraging in that it doesn't mean you have to hire a firm to professionally produce the first prototype. It can be a sort of taped together situation. Again, you might have a better chance if it's fully developed, but in electronics, like you said, electronics could be a whole different ball game. But okay, so is there more to unpack with this step 4? I know, again, we're unpacking what we can here in an hour, but with the prototyping, yeah,
there's one other aspect, which is a 3D model, and a lot of people choose a 3D model, or we like to call it a virtual prototype.
Like a CAD drawing or something?
Yes, like a CAD drawing, but very, very nicely rendered. So for people listening, CAD drawings are usually a little bit more like SolidWorks, or they're usually gray. Like sometimes they have some finish on it. But we like to use CAD as more mechanical. When we think of like a 3D render or a 3D model, something that looks so real from your screen that you could pick it up, take it off the screen, and it would look very, very close to the completely finished product.
Okay. How do you make those? Do you hire somebody on, say, Fiverr, for example? Or I know there's people that do it there.
Yeah, you absolutely can. I've used Fiverr probably at least 80, 85 times or so through my product licensing career. And there's a lot of
Is that your go-to place to get something done like that?
Yes, Fiverr is, but we also have an in-house design studio at inventRight at the company that I work for, so I utilize them a lot. And that's a service that you can pay like a la carte if you're not a member as well. So it's either that or Fiverr is a great way to go about it.
Do you know roughly what that costs? What that costs you to get a prototype, a mock-up?
It definitely depends. And it depends on the technicality of it, and if you want an animation with it. For Fiverr, you can get a pretty okay one, like a pretty one that you can use, let me just say, for your sell sheet, which we'll get into in step 6. And most of them range between $30 to $100 for what you need for your sell sheet. Yeah.
Totally reasonable. And for the service that they offer at inventRight, do you have any idea what they charge for something like that?
Yeah. So with our design studio, all of our designers are trained in our industry for product licensing in particular. They're awesome. I've worked with them since 2016, and I prefer people going to them mainly because I trust their work. With Fiverr, unfortunately, until you find a really good designer, you're going to be usually talking with multiple artists and spending that amount of money for each one until you find a good one, and then you can stay with them. It is a different price when you're a member versus a non-member, but I believe it might be around like $300 or $400.
Okay. I was just trying to get a general sense, because if it was like $5,000 or a few $100. Okay. I won't tie you to it because obviously prices change and things like that, but just to give us an idea. I have a question before we move on to the next step, because now you're at the point where you've done all this market research. You even have this realistic looking prototype or a Frankenstein thing. If you have a Frankenstein thing, maybe it's different, but let's say you have a 3D model prototype. Why not just take all of that and make your own Shopify store or whatever, and then just start trying to pre-sell that directly? Again, I know there's reasons why not to. If product licensing is a different model, you can get more distribution and things like that. But have you done that? Have you pivoted like partway through, like, oh wow, why don't I just actually try to sell this direct to consumer or business to business or whatever the product is? Because now you've done a lot of the legwork to get to the point where you could actually get this online and start pre-selling something before it's even manufactured. Now, I understand the caveat is, okay, now you're committing to actually manufacturing the thing, which is another skill set. I'm just curious, for you personally, have you pivoted like that? What are some of the things to consider when people get to that point?
Yeah, so I have not personally. We do have students who will venture, as we call it, start a business and license. We have people who venture and then stop venturing to license.
You could do both.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you can definitely do both. However, we have found that there's two usually different types of people that are attracted to the different business models. And a lot of our students have full-time jobs that they're wanting to keep. And usually when you're getting more into buying inventory and then selling it yourself, that becomes more and more of a full-time job that you're hoping does kick off and is successful. As most businesses do fail, you obviously want to put a lot of time, money, and effort into that. With product licensing, as long as you have that really nice 3D model or something to showcase on a sell sheet, And sometimes companies do want to see prototypes, so we'll get into that. But besides that, you will never be creating any kind of inventory at all. You are strictly selling your concept on a flyer, what we call a sell sheet, a billboard for the concept. And if the company is interested, they take that piece of paper and they say, this is brilliant. I want to have a conversation with you. And then they work with their factories to make samples and to get quotes and to make sure the audience is interested. And they put in all of the legwork and money and time, and you are completely done at that point, which is obviously very attractive to people who are more risk averse and want to use their time, money, and energy in other places.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for breaking that down. All right, what's the next step, number 5?
Yeah, the next step is one of my absolute favorite steps, and it's called, step 5 is called the OSBS, which is the one line benefit statement. So one line,
the elevator
one
pitch.
Sentence. Yes, the elevator pitch. Yes, exactly. And it's one sentence that is put up on the top of your sell sheet, which is in step 6, which is that piece of paper, that billboard. And it is a really cool exploratory step because you're sitting down and really getting to know your product for the very first time, which is so cool because inventors think that they know what their product concept is because it's been in their head for years. Like they want to bring it to market. Of course they know what the product is until you really sit down with it and really think about all angles of all of the marketing copy for that matter, not just the one line, one sentence benefit statement, but all of the benefits that go on the sell sheet, the footer information, are you patent pending, any features of it, any captions. And so through all of that language that you're creating, as well as the one sentence benefit statement, it's a really cool getting to know you step that you didn't realize how deep your product was, what the emotional benefits of that product is, because consumers are buying most likely in most industries emotionally. So you got to get more in touch with the emotional side of your product.
Yeah, the emotional benefits. That's key. All right. As a side note, I think I've done this before. If somebody's listening and they want to create a product for themselves or a service that they're going to offer outside of product licensing even, I have found this at times a very helpful exercise to create like the sales page or the landing page first with everything you're describing, like the one sentence pitch, the emotional benefits, because then you get clarity on everything that you're designing. Like you almost reverse engineer it. You're like, all right, like if I'm going to promise these things, I have to this actually has to deliver in this way. And if you're struggling to come up with the benefits, that's another indicator, I feel like too, or maybe this isn't such a great idea, because it's all in your head. So I find that creating like a 1-page sales sheet or something, even if it's for something that doesn't even exist, if for certain things, I feel like maybe this is different because you have the 3D model and you're going through a whole process, and I understand that. But if you did that even in step 1, maybe do the market research first. But say step 4, you could understand a bit more about it might even influence the design. I don't know. It's just like something to think about, I think.
It does. It completely does. And in fact, a lot of serial inventors will do steps 4, 5, and 6 all together exactly because of what you're saying. It's like the cart before the horse. It's like, how do I know what it's going to look like if I don't really know what the emotional benefits are of my product? So some people absolutely do reverse it, and it can create a better product.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I've also heard this said, I don't know if you could take it for what it's worth, but I think it's a good mental exercise when you're thinking about a physical product is if people can't like understand it and get excited about it in a 15-second Instagram video, then it's probably not worth selling. Now, granted, that's not necessarily true across the board, but you get the spirit of it.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. If you can show the benefits and people can understand it quickly, you have a good shot at something, I feel.
Absolutely. And with the OSBS, a lot of that does come down into taking your time, getting to know the product, writing out all of the benefits, and then is there one main benefit that is really, really powerful, the most important one that if someone saw it, like for, actually, I won't tell you the product, see if everyone can guess it for a couple seconds here, which is, this is a OSBS for a product, and the OSBS is 1,000 songs in your pocket.
The iPod, of course.
Yes,
the original.
exactly.
The OG OSBS,
You didn't even
baby.
give him time, Jason. Come on.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, folks. They all knew. They're smart. Yeah, it's a great example, I think. It's a classic example, right? It says it all in a short
And it sounds mystical.
sentence. Yeah.
It sounds very
right.
interesting. And we usually say that like intrigue plus a little bit of mystery, uniqueness equals your OSBS. What even is 1,000 songs in your pocket? Is it a device? Like you haven't even mentioned at all what the thing is. And that's the goal. You do not want to mention what it is. It flips pancakes, twice as fast. What is it? I don't know. I guess you're going to have to take a look at the sell sheet and learn more about it. It's intriguing.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I had not thought of it as... okay. So in the 1,000 Songs example, right, you have you understand what it is practically that you're going to get, but you're also creating the intrigue that you mentioned. That's a really interesting dichotomy there. If you can bring those two together in a statement, that's pretty sexy. All right. Sexy, the right word. I don't know.
It totally is. It totally is. It needs to be magical. If it's not magical, it's not serving its purpose.
Yeah. This is fun. I love geeking out on business stuff and learning new things like this. All right. Okay. Let's, I hope everybody listening is having a good time. All right. Well, let's carry on with step. Are we on 6? We're on 6 now. Okay. Yeah. You're rocking so far.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe people have paused this and they already have all this created. They're all right, I'm done. Let's hear the next steps. We want to know what your product is. Get in touch. All right.
Yeah. So step 6 is actually the sell sheet. So we break up the sell sheet into 2 parts. Step 5 is the marketing copy, all of the language that goes on the sell sheet. And step 6 is the actual sell sheet. That's SELL sheet. And that is the images that go on the sell sheet. And you're putting together the marketing copy into the sell sheet as well in step 6. And so through that, again, the sell sheet, it's a one page, I want to clarify, PDF that is very image heavy. There are many different layouts of sell sheets, and layouts really matter because eye tracking matters, because the people you're pitching it to will probably take a good 10 seconds to look at all of your 5 to 10 hours of work. And so you do want to make it count. You want your eyes to look right up at the OSBS first, at the very top of the, 1,000 songs in your pocket. You want on the right or the left to be what we call a beauty shot, which is an image of your product, not a scene, not your hand in it, not a bunch of different versions of the product, a single product on there, because that image is going to serve the purpose of what you're actually looking to license. Then on the opposite side, you have the benefits, and there should be between 3 to 5 benefits. And these are benefit statements. These are not just, single words. It could be
like a bullet point list.
Exactly. Like helps you clean around the house, or enjoy more time with your family and less time cleaning. Those are benefit sentences. And then you got to decide what the rest of the layout is depending on which layout you choose. But a common one is called a 3-box storyboard, where you have 3 images that show how the product works, or it shows like a before and an after of this is what your house looked like before, and this is what your living room and your office looks like now that it's cleaned with the magical broom. And then you have captions at the bottom as well, that are talking about in very, very short sentences what is going on in those images. And then you have a footer at the bottom as well, which includes your name, your company name, which can be a fake entity for now. I would not recommend getting any type of business to cover this. You would do that way, way, way later in the contract. So don't, again, as Jason said, don't play business, do business. And then your phone number, your email. If it's going to be patent pending, you'll write patent pending on there, and then available for licensing. And that's the entire sell sheet.
Okay. Awesome. Next step.
Step 7, which is a little bit difficult for a lot of people, which is the PPA, the provisional patent application. It's very important to make sure that you actually do the PPA at step 7. and not at step 1, which a lot of people make that mistake to protect first. And the reason is because when it comes down to your writing the PPA, you're going to go through an exploratory discovery of what your product really is. And by the time you get to step 7, you're going to have way more information on what your product is than if you started at step 1 because you're nervous someone's going to steal your idea, which rarely ever happens. And so in step 7, you will write your provisional patent application if you think it makes sense for that product. There are so many thoughts on this everywhere of, do you file for protection and what kind of protection and copyrights and trademarks and utility and design, and it's all of this stuff. At inventRight, we recommend for most industries to just file a provisional patent application that gives you 1 year, no trademarks, no copyrights, no non-provisional application that costs $10,000 and up. Get that priority date and then pitch the product and see if someone is even interested in the product. Okay,
so is the 12-month clock start when it's approved or when you submit it?
So PPAs are never looked at by anyone. They are not approved in any way, shape, or form. So you just pay the $65 and you wait for 1 week or so to get something in the mail that does say that you did it correctly. And that's it. Then you do get those 12 months and you can file another PPA. So let's say you have your 12 months and it's that 11th month and you're like, oh no, I haven't gotten a deal. What do I do now? Like, am I out? Like, is that it? And again, a lot of companies don't care about intellectual property. So even if you do have a PPA, they may not even care about it. Like Dormco, I asked them and they're like, no, we don't have a PPA if you want to, or, a utility patent. That's not our business model. And so it depends on the industry. It depends on the company. And of course, this is step 7. You're not even pitching yet. So you don't know if you're going to need IP, intellectual property, for your product or not. And so we recommend just having that PPA for 12 months. And if at that 11-month time or 12-month time and it expires, you can absolutely go ahead and file another PPA. It's just you lose that former PPA because when a PPA expires, that's it. It goes away, poof, into nothingness. It's like it never ever happened. And when you file a PPA again, now you get that new priority date. So it's something to keep in mind.
All right. So the clock starts ticking when you file it or when you're approved a week later, but then you can reapply later. So that means you have essentially an unlimited in each, as long as you reapply. Okay. Lastly, before we move on from this, is this step, can we think of this as like, it's not that we're going to own intellectual property or have a patent, like you said, but can you think of this as like some form of protection where you're kind of like putting a hold on the idea so nobody else can like swoop in and patent something similar? Is that the idea?
Yeah, 100%.
Somebody could still do that, and then you can't afford to battle it in the court of law, and then you're just screwed. I mean, anything you do like this comes with risks, right?
Yes, it definitely does, and it really comes down to how much money you have, and if you're willing to spend the next 5 years into litigation. In fact, that's what happened with our co-founder, Stephen Key at inventRight. He went up against Lego, and he won. Because of one word in his patent. And he spent a lot of years battling that. And you have to make a decision. Is that what you want your life to become, to be, is litigation? And most people are like, no, I don't have the money and I don't care.
Right. It could be worth it in some cases. I always think of those twins, those Facebook twins, whatever they were named. Didn't they they said this was our idea, and then they won, and now they're very rich. So yeah, it could be worth it. Could not, depending on your situation.
It definitely can, yeah. And of course, I'm going to give the usual not giving legal advice,
right?
But when it does,
we're not legal professionals. We're not. Yeah,
exactly.
Don't try to. Yeah, don't even.
Yeah,
don't even.
Don't even.
All right. We're not tax professionals. We're not attorneys.
No,
you get it. That's our disclaimer.
Also with PPAs...
This is for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah. One more thing I'll mention about PPAs is it is possible for someone to go ahead and see that like they have a product idea, they don't know anything about product licensing, they file for a non-provisional patent, a patent that then within 18 months does maybe or maybe not get approved. It goes through what are called office actions back and forth, and you argue if your patent is good to get so many claims based on the prior art out there. But through this, it's important to be aware that just because you have a PPA, yeah, you might have priority over that other person who has a non-provisional. But once your PPA expires, they have now the intellectual property of, you know, what they're trying to move forward with, which is probably going to be a little bit different than your idea. But PPAs are provisionals. They are provisional applications. You have that priority date until it expires. But when it expires, if there's someone else who just happened to come up with the same product idea at the same time, then once your PPA goes away, they are technically next in line, which also very, very rarely happens because people have the same product ideas and the exact same claims they want to have. Usually you can just keep filing a PPA every year. But keep in mind that priority date does move. It's not like you get, 2023, you filed your first PPA and you filed, for a year ever since then. You lost that priority date for every 12 months.
Okay, the last question. Are you supposed to search these provisional? Is there a way to search what provisional patents are out there before you apply for yours so you don't?
No.
Okay.
You cannot see.
You can only search patents on Google Patents, for example.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
You can search for patents. Not necessarily. They don't have to be granted. All patents are become publicly available at the 18-month mark. And remember, keep in mind that PPAs only last for 12 months, so they do not ever get into public knowledge ever. You cannot search them. You cannot even search for your own. Which does obviously make it difficult because you don't know what is already attempting to be protected within that first year that you have.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's just a step that we have to do, but there's many nuances as you heard, but it's still, you still recommend we don't skip this step if we're at this point, right?
Preferably, yeah. I mean, and once you come very advanced, then like, for example, myself, I file very, very few PPAs anymore at all, especially because I'm in certain industries that aren't massively focused on PPAs. So I can often skip that step because of the industries and because of how I conduct myself professionally with companies. It's not an absolute must, but if you're doing this for the first time, it's smart to file one.
I see. Okay, great. All right, we got 3 steps left, 8, 9, and 10.
Yes.
Right?
We do, but I will say
Is
9 and
10
10
sit back and make a lot of money? I hope so.
Not quite. We'll get to that. But step 8 is very, very important because it's actually where the rubber meets the road when you officially start pitching. We do call it pitching. However, a lot of it is sending cold emails out to companies. You're not pitching your product. What we recommend is if you can get your sell sheet into a company, you kind of show them the sell sheet and you run the other direction. You let them sit with it and think about it. You're not actually talking about the product like to them on a video call, though that does sometimes happen, or at trade shows. About 80% of pitching is you find the company, you create what's called a hit list. You have a hit list of 20 to 30 companies that you're going to reach out to. You research them. You make sure they're a good fit. You make sure that they truly do manufacture their own products. And then after that, you can contact their customer service. We really recommend, which is part of our program called Smart Pitch, which is optimizing your LinkedIn account. You can connect with and pitch to employees on LinkedIn, which is an incredible way to get in touch with employees that you couldn't any other way. And then you can do phone calls. You can do Facebook and get people there on Facebook. Mind you, these are not employees. Do not message Facebook people on Facebook as employees. Do not do that. But their actual page, their Hasbro's Facebook page,
Their company page, yeah.
Exactly. Instagram as well, again, calling, live chats. You're basically trying to raid the castle in any way possible to just gently try to find the right department of who would be the right person to send your sell sheet to. You never, ever want to send something unsolicited, ever. There are so many unsolicited idea policies out there that say if you send a sell sheet to any connection to the company, whether it's a contact us form or if it's an employee on a LinkedIn, if you send it without talking to them, they immediately own the idea. You lose all rights to the idea, which, defeats the whole purpose of what we're trying to do. So you don't want to send it unsolicited. You want to ask them. And there's so much psychology in script writing, which is something that I love to do as a part of my job. But one example of a pitch you could use to a company is, hello team, hello customer service, hello Bob. I'm a professional product developer and I have developed a product concept that I think would fit your product line very well. Who at the company would be the right person to talk to about this? Or you could ask a question like, does your company accept outside product ideas? Unfortunately, there's a lot of terms that we use in the industry that companies are not aware of, like sell sheet. If you say, can I send you my sell sheet? A lot of companies are going to be like, are they trying to sell me something? Like, what is this? Our industry is technically called open innovation, which unfortunately a lot of companies aren't aware of. If a company does work with and accept ideas from inventors, product designers, product developers, we would call them open innovation friendly, OIF. But though we use that term, a lot of companies don't know what that term is. So I would highly not recommend asking, are you open innovation friendly? Do you work with open innovation? Because they're not going to get it. So just keep it as layman's terms as you can.
That's great advice. Okay, yeah. So the script you laid out sounds perfect because layman's terms. Like you said, it's just, hey, do you accept product ideas? Or I'm not sure how you worded it, but people can rewind and listen. And I think that's, I find too, when it comes to business development or things like this, it's always easier to send the kind of email that is like you described, where you're just asking for the right person. Because if you think about it from the person in the office's perspective, it's like they can help and they can get it off their plate and they've sort of like wiped their hands clean. And so for them, that's not something that they have to respond to. They just have to loop you into the right person. And now I've done my job, I'm done. And I feel like those types of things are kind of easier to do, where you're like, hey, like I'll even use a subject header sometimes, like, hey, can you help point me in the right direction?
Yes,
and
we
just
use
kind
that
of
all
like,
the time. We're such a fan of that.
It's just like, it just works because people just want to get it off their plate. You have to think about, when you're reaching out to somebody, like, what do you actually, if you ask too much, you're not going to get anywhere. If you try to sell something right away, like you said, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you're just like you said, the mentality of relationship building is the best kind of approach. You're just,
It is. Especially because you probably go back to the company.
Just be human.
Exactly. And we like to say, like, you're a inventor lost in the woods. You're just trying to find your way. Like, hey, like, could you help point me in the right direction? Like, sometimes companies direct me to the marketing department, which is true. Sometimes they direct me to sales. Sometimes they direct me to the CEO, the co-founder, the owner, business growth, business development, VPs, directors, engineers, research and development.
It's not always the same person.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah. But that's like with most industries. So this is like top line advice that you can use in any industry.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. All right. What's left?
Yeah. So once you have your PPA and you officially start pitching, and to clarify, step 8 is officially starting to pitch. It's forming and building your hit list of companies you're going to reach out to. And it's script writing, using someone's script or coming up with a script. And then keeping in mind, step 8 is the catalyst. You cannot go to step 9 until you pitch. The goal is not to learn the 10 steps and then to do them. You start pitching immediately, and preferably you're pitching at least consistently 2 to 3 hours a week, copying and pasting your script and sending out email after email, and hopefully 5 to 10 emails per company. At the same time, different emails, one to customer service, maybe if there's a support email separately, if there's PR, maybe, can you connect with people on a LinkedIn, try their live chat. You've got at least 5 to 10 forms of communication going out to each company on your list. Then you're going to continue with doing follow-ups. We recommend not going to step 9 or 10 until you have truly gone through step 8 and started to pitch for either you've collected 5 no's, and not all no's are created equal. There are true no's and there are false no's. And then, or you have pitched for a month. So until you've hit one of those 2 parameters, 5 no's or pitched for a month, then you can go to step 9, which is learning about negotiations, what's in a contract, and how to professionally and strategically negotiate your licensing contract.
Okay. Step 9 is after you get the deal. And then
Correct.
There's too much to unpack with negotiating. And
yeah, it's quite extensive and excessive. And we, of course, touched on a couple of the terms like distribution and territory and all of those terms. And the royalty, most people get a 5% royalty. Before, it used to be 3%, was much more common. And luckily, in the past 5 years or so, it's gone higher to 5% is more of the average. But many companies still do 3%. And of course, you can negotiate. The most important thing that I would say when it comes to step 9 is everything is negotiable. You definitely want to negotiate it, preferably in the contract, and you go back and forth and redline it. But keep in mind that people get really stuck on the royalty. I got to get a 5% or a 7% or a 6%, not a 3%, but maybe if I'm open, but I really they keep playing with these numbers. And what's really important to remember is the number is contingent on all of the other things going on in the contract. For example, Hasbro, I think last time I checked, had a 1.5% royalty that what they say is a non-negotiable, that is what you get if you license with them as an inventor. But it's Hasbro. Their distribution is insane. So if you get a 1% with Hasbro, you will be set. That's okay.
Yeah, like you're saying, do you want
that.
6% on 100 units or 1% on 1,000,000?
Exactly. We give that example all of the time. It's not the percent, it's what's connected to it. It's the distribution and the territory and a bunch of other terms as well. So definitely keep that in mind when you get into that initial interest and you start talking about a term sheet maybe, which is usually a compiled list of the focused, important aspects of a contract. Some companies do a term sheet, some companies don't. Preferably, if I had to make a decision of term sheet yes, term sheet no, I would not handle a term sheet at all and go directly to the contract, because then you can negotiate on everything that's in the contract and get them closer to looking at what that contract looks like instead of having a middleman term sheet before going to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question on the percentage. Is the percentage coming from, I just assume that it comes from what the consumer pays when a unit is purchased by a consumer, as opposed to if they license your product and they make 100 of them at $5 and then they sell 100 at $20, you're getting the 5% off the $20. Is that right?
It depends, unfortunately. Yeah, in the contract, it can be on what's called net sales, which is what you are describing. So you're getting 5% on the $20 minus the net is talking about a group of things that they are excluding, such as shipping costs and
sales
any type
tax,
of,
maybe.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Returns, discounts, all of that is amounted into it. However, a lot of companies will do it on the wholesale price. And that is usually okay overall, because when it comes down to the wholesale, so again, that might be cut in half of $10 because you got to get it to Walmart and Walmart needs their cut, and there's a middleman here. Just because you're a brand doesn't mean that, all your products are going to be sold through your website. You're going to have distribution and retailers selling it. And so that also means usually higher distribution, a higher royalty percentage as well, depending, and more units sold. It can be negotiable, but most of the time they're going to just let you know. Either they're going to be dealing in wholesale because of their business model, or they're going to be dealing in net sale. And it's usually better to negotiate the other terms in the contract than to play with, well, you said this, but can I have, net sale instead?
Okay. Fair enough. All right, what's step 10 then? I'm curious. I feel like we did everything, but there's another step.
Yeah, and it's interesting because how I like to think about it is steps 1 through 3 is like one gigantic step. And then you've got the virtual prototype, which, that VP might be used on the sell sheet. And step 5 and step 6 are, very, together. And then you got step 7 and you've got step 8. And that's kind of like 5 steps we're talking about, all into one. And those are the core steps, is like trying to do it again and again and again. And then step 9, yes, if you get into negotiations and the contract. And step 10 is a lot of talking about the soft skills and deciding what parts did you enjoy about the process and what parts do you want to, as you go around a second time and a third and a 20th and a 1,000th time through the process, do you want to negotiate, delegate? Do you want to delegate to have, someone make your virtual prototype instead of maybe you did it before? As well as decide how long have you been pitching it? What are the parameters for, again, should you continue pitching it based on industry feedback or should you shelve it? It also talks about like going pro and seeing like now you've done, the 10-step process once. How do you speed up the process and do it quicker? How do you become a serial inventor? It's kind of like tying up all the loose ends of like, can you go pro and can you speed up the process?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I like that because it's always good to take time to reflect and see what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to outsource, what you want to improve on, and all that. So that's great. Wow. I mean, we covered a ton. Where should people go to get in touch with you with more questions, find out more information? What do you want to share here?
Yeah, I would give 2 things. One is I'm very active on my LinkedIn account, especially because we're talking with companies all of the time, getting into companies for our students, and our students' clients are getting into them as well. So we definitely recommend, if you have any questions or want to learn more about product licensing or any free resources for up and coming inventor like yourself, definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. You can just type in my name and connect with me. I will definitely take a look, and I connect with everyone. So definitely we can talk that way and communicate through LinkedIn message. I also do have a podcast called the Serial Inventing Podcast, and you can go to the serialinventingpodcast.com. You can contact me there as well. And it's also a good resource, which is why I created it, that really talks about the soft skills of inventing, because there's an incredible amount of resources out there for the hard skills of what makes a good sell sheet. How do you file a PPA? What's the best pitching script? But like I said at the beginning, all of those hard skills, all of those 10 steps that we just talked about, the 1 through 10, is 20% of what is going to make you successful. And it's so easy to forget that. And it's so few resources out there as well, except from other industries. And so I'm taking really well-known expert knowledge that is just, how to form habits, how to create a discipline when your motivation is fleeting. Where do you focus on when it comes to your 1-sentence benefit statement to get the most emotion out of it, so you can pitch your product well? All of that is talked about in my podcast, because I just felt like there wasn't enough focus on that in the industry, because we need more winners. We need more licensing deals. We need more companies to be open to and listening and learning about what product licensing is, because that helps everyone. That helps us get out of our jobs that we don't enjoy, our 9-to-5s. That helps us become location independent. That helps us create a dream and a passion in something that we love and can bring out to the world. It helps us take action by coming up with an idea from your brain and getting rich off of it on a 1.5% licensing deal with Hasbro. It really helps the economy, and it helps ourselves. And the more we can get this information out there on what product licensing is to the world, is going to be an incredible experience that you guys can have, as well as the companies too.
I love it. It's fun to do a deep dive on this. I feel like I learned a ton, and I think we also covered a lot of overarching themes and things that can work in various industries, whatever you're in terms of products and services that you offer. But of course, all of this stuff directly related to product licensing. It was a gold mine of information. And thank you for bringing the fire and the passion here late at night, as you did. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about I mean, we can't go an entire Zero to Travel podcast without talking a little bit about travel. I just wanted to ask you about your solo trips that you took. I know you mentioned, I don't know if this is still the case. I mentioned in a previous email that you have like a location dependent partner, but you're location independent, and you've tried to maybe start taking advantage of that with some solo trips. I'm just wondering, what's been your experience with traveling solo and, that dynamic, if that's still happening?
Yeah. It's interesting. I will have to say that I've enjoyed travel much more when I'm not by myself. I'm actually, it may not sound like it, but I'm actually pretty introverted, except when I'm talking about my passion here. And so I have taken a trip to London and to Germany by myself, and it was an incredible experience. However, more recently, I did take a trip with my family and my partner, Mike, to Denmark and to Iceland. And overall, I have found that though I can successfully solo travel, I can do it. And I really took that trip to London and Germany to prove to myself that I can actually do it. However, I have so much more fun when I'm with my community, with people that I love. And so instead of doing more solo travel, which again, I can absolutely do, I have found that if I can bring more people along with me and have them also at least try to experience travel with me, I've enjoyed it a little bit more, which is harder, of course, but it's worth it.
I think it's great. I mean, the idea that you did it just to prove to yourself that you could, in and of itself, it makes it worthwhile, I think. And I do find it's empowering that, you have to know yourself, right? Like you don't know what the experience is like until you go, and, you're like, okay, well, I just prefer to be traveling with my peeps, and that's cool. But you also know you can solo travel if you really want to go somewhere, which is kind of empowering and nice too. So
absolutely. And I'm getting more and more into game design myself as well.
I saw that. Yeah. That's
whole
another
new
licensing
area.
thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
License. Yeah.
And it's huge. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. Though, interestingly, in the game world, they call it finding a publisher instead of product licensing. Because as soon as you talk about licensing, they're thinking brands and you're slapping, Elmo on a product. And so it gets confusing when, unfortunately, we use the industry terms. However, I will be attending a lot of trade shows and going by myself to some well-known trade shows in the game space, which will, again, what's so cool about this industry is you will be able to go to these. There's so many events that you can go to as an inventor, a product developer, and you can meet people who are doing the exact same thing as you, pitching their toys and their games and other products. And you can get that experience of going to a new place that you've never been to. Like they have a good one in Chicago. They have one in Florida. They have one in Las Vegas. They have one in Nuremberg. They have one in London, and many other places as well. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an excuse to be able to travel to these places if you're doing product licensing.
Yeah, it's always nice if you can tie in some travel with your business, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, I feel that way anyway.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. Please stay in touch, and really appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Jason. It was a pleasure.
Take care. There you have it. Thank you to Courtney Lasowich for dropping by the show and sharing her knowledge on product licensing. I had fun with that one. And if you'd like me to do more location independent type of business models, more episodes like this, again, this was a bit of experiment because I haven't done one of these in so long. Drop me a line. Jason@zerototravel.com is my email, @zerototravel on Instagram. That's where we're most active. And I would love to know what you would want me to cover. What other types of location independent, location free business models or subjects you'd like me to talk about. Freelancing, e-commerce, you name it. I'm on my own product journey, as I mentioned, and I do want to mention one more time, I'm sharing the details of that over on the Zero to Travel newsletter, which is free to sign up for, by the way, zerototravel.com/newsletter. Sign up over there if you haven't done so already. And I'm going to leave you with this quote. Now, this is one that I think wraps up this episode perfectly. But after a bit of research, I discovered that it wasn't said by the person it is attributed to. At least the genesis for the modern saying, the modern version, comes from Plato. In the Republic, he wrote, "Our need will be the real creator," which turned into, "Necessity is the mother of invention." And from my, quick and dirty research, it just seems like that phrase that encapsulates the idea that Plato shared just kind of evolved over time. It's not actually attributed to one person. So when you look it up, you'll see perhaps Plato saying necessity is the mother of invention, but he actually didn't say it. He said our need will be the creator, which spawned necessity is the mother of invention. Anyway, thought that was interesting and wanted to share that because that is where a lot of inventions come from, right? Somebody needs something and they're like, why can't we do it this way? I can do it better this way. And it's so funny because you think everything's been invented and then something comes out and you're just like, oh, gosh, this is so much better. Why didn't I think of that? I think of the Dyson air dryer for the hands, all those years where you're in the bathroom, you wander from the sink over to the air dryer after washing your hands and the water's just dripping on the floor and the air is pouring out of the machine. And then Dyson comes out with the thing where you just, you put your hands in and the water's not dripping all over the floor anymore and you just pull them out and they're dry. And it's just like, well, why didn't anybody do this before? So perhaps if you're sitting in an idea, the challenge for you is to dive a little deeper on that and maybe try to bring it to life. Who knows? Let me know if you do. And I'll let you know when mine comes to life as well. It actually is to life. I have a prototype. I have some exciting stuff around it, and it's been quite a journey, but excited to continue to share it with the Zero to Travel community over on the newsletter, and we'll be sharing on the podcast as well. Don't worry, that's coming too. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.